Thank you very much. So, I am the founder and CTO of a company called Hanson Robotics. We develop robots that are very, very human-like. Robots that can display a full range of facial expressions and that have cameras in the eyes that allow them to see your face and track your face. These faces are unique in the world because of the size of their expression, the low power, lightweight quality of the expression, which allows them to mount on walking humanoid robot bodies. Our goal is to make these kinds of robots relevant to us, useful in real applications. Part of the magic of humanoid robots is that they remind us of ourselves. We make them in a human-like form, which is very similar to the magic of character media, like character animation. So we're looking to transform these robots into character animation that you can hug, that you can form a friendship with, a relationship with. But what's more interesting is when the robots can care back. So we're putting in conversational software and artificial intelligence, a large assembly of very many different kinds of artificial intelligence that allow the machines to perceive you, to understand your speech, to integrate these perceptions into a model of who you are and what you're feeling, and then to remember the experiences of the conversations that the robots have had with you. The goal is that over time, these robots will grow more intelligent. Right now, the intelligence is very rudimentary. But the computing infrastructure is getting better. The algorithms are getting better. And as we develop these into more intelligent characters, then the opportunities for uses in our life just grow over time. So what we've done at our company, at Hanson Robotics, is develop a series of robots and fundamental technologies that display the potential for these kinds of technologies in the marketplace and in real applications interacting with real people. So people tend to respond very favorably to these things. So these actual human psychology studies and marketing studies where we put them in to these kinds of science museum type applications, into autism therapy experiments, they prove that robots can be absolutely captivating. They can win a smile off the face of a child. They can warm up the heart of a person sitting on the sofa having a conversation to the point where they will reach out and touch the robot. So we're developing these as integrated media opportunities that are robots, actual robots, characters with stories, comic books, and also the applications for these robots deploying in numerous medical, therapy, education, entertainment products. Next slide, please. Let me see. Here's the slide button. Okay. So this will show you some of the facial expressions on the robots. This one is called Diego-san at the University of California at San Diego. It is a platform for neural algorithms that are based on children, how children learn from infancy. And children learn by interacting with a human caretaker. So the robots can read your facial expressions, the emotions on your face, and estimate how you're feeling and get some response as they're learning from the world. So they're doing very interesting work at this particular university, and just showing you that for the robot to do its part in that infant caretaker interaction, it's got to show how it's feeling too. It needs to be able to show when it's frustrated and when it cares, and make eye contact and look for that kind of approval as it's interacting with the world. very important for the way that infants learn, and very important for developing intelligent machines with human-like emotions. What we're after with these machines is to form a true relationship with people. We want to win people's hearts, and we want robots that have heart as well. We want robots who care. In science fiction, there are very many uses for robots. And so, obviously, people tend to appreciate beauty and character in human-human interactions. That's why most celebrities have amazing faces, right? I mean, so much character in their face, and usually very beautiful faces. So we expect that robots will also have similar kinds of, there will be demand for beauty in robots. So I would like to contextualize this just for a moment. This is an amazing time that we live in for technologies. And robots have come so far in the last 20 years. The last 10 to 20 years have produced the majority of progress in all the history of robots and artificial intelligence. Robots can now run. And they can run not just in these kinds of limited ways, they can also run across diverse and unstructured terrain, like the Atlas robots that have been acquired by Google recently, but were developed for defense applications. They've also become smarter and more intelligent. This is because of the fundamental advances in computing technologies, distributed computing. The sensors, low-cost sensors, have improved substantially. The capacity to see faces, do all of these kinds of things that intelligent software have become quite capable of doing, thanks to non-robotic applications in telephony and so forth. But robots themselves have become more physically capable of bipedal locomotion, navigation through a space, and we've seen improvements in a lot of the other fundamental technologies. Robots have also proven more useful and popular in the marketplace, expanding tenfold approximately every year, every 3 to 4 years in the marketplace. But there's a question: why human-like, right? Why bother making them look humanoid at all? The reason is that we are evolved to love the human form. We form relationships with our faces and with our bodies and the perception of faces and bodies. So we're hardwired to perceive each other this way. And that is why you see magazines with faces on the covers of the magazines. That's why in film animation and entertainment arts, we favor the human-like form and face so generally. So in the visual arts as well, this is a sculpture. It's not a robot face, but you can see this kind of 2-meter tall mask sculpture is hypnotic. It just holds your attention. What's interesting is that it's not just in art for adults that this works. Newborn babies recognize human faces and facial expressions, and they bond based on the face. And they recognize the social intention of people based on the face and the action of the face. Right out of the womb, they fix on the face. It's just the way humans are. We're wired this way. This means that you can communicate with people faster and more intuitively. It is like a high bandwidth data pathway into the human brain. And also, we can't help but express ourselves with our face and our gestures, which means that if you have robots that can read your face and gestures and have this kind of feedback loop between their face and gestures, you can get more information out of a person. So it's not just a one-directional high-bandwidth data interface. It can be a two-directional high-bandwidth data interface. So what that means is it's a far more intuitive form of human-computer interface. So this is the reason that we favor the human-like form for making robots. Not all robots need a human-like form, but those ones that you want to interact with people, that you want to get, where you want that kind of interface, it can be very useful to use what we know about faces, gestures, the direction of intention through gestures. So making them with faces make them speak to us. And there are other reasons. It helps the robots to become more human. It also helps us to be more human. In other words, we no longer have to mechanize the human to make the human's interface with computers. We're humanizing the computers to facilitate their connection with people. So there are very many successful examples in the marketplace. So there are robot toys that are dolls that have facial expressions, human-like expressions, and speech recognition. And they sell millions of units of these dolls, if the aesthetic is tuned correctly. That's the challenge. They have to be aesthetically appealing, but they have succeeded in the marketplace. They've also, humanoid robots have succeeded in medical simulation. So now medical simulation is about a $1.3 billion market annually. About $400 million of which are these robots that doctors and medical professionals practice on. This is an existing market that is growing very quickly. It is improving medical care and can be argued that through the improved medical care, they're saving lives. We also see many humanoid robots in these kinds of example applications improving the quality of life, bringing wonder to people, and particularly in Japan, where robots facilitate these kinds of ceremonial activities, they bring a lot of value to people's lives. Likewise, we capture some of the great ceremonial moments in history through animatronics in these kinds of entertainment applications, like the Hall of Presidents at Disneyland. And so this is relevant because animatronics, which is a form of robotics, has been very successful in the marketplace over the last 50 years, driving the success of many theme park attractions. But theme parks are beginning to grow and expand, especially in Asia. And high technology wonders are a key driver towards marketing theme parks. And of course, there's questions about the applications for these into the future. And I think that people make jokes about this kind of thing, but I think we seriously have to consider the consequences, the social consequences of these robots and the way that they interact with us. And so, in my opinion, I think that we want to focus on those things that are useful, that can do the kinds of therapy and genuine information applications, while also being aware that there may be uncontrolled social impacts associated with these things. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment and introduce you to a friend of mine named Arthur. So, Arthur? Yeah, you've woken up. Nice to see you. So, Arthur is a Hanson humanoid robot and can display a wide range of facial expressions. He's got cameras in his eyes. Let's see if I can get him to look at my face. And now, like something along the lines of, so you can see that he's simulating multiple facial expressions. He's got the brow creases and folds, and so he can do a wide range of interactions. You can control him through the web. You can have a conversational interaction with him. He's controlled not just by the artificial intelligence software, but also by some computer animation software. So we've got an interface between him and state-of-the-art game animation and film quality movie animation, but his animations are procedural or programmatic. What that means is that they don't repeat, they change constantly, and they can respond to you and your facial expressions. So he winds up being aware of who people are around him, aware of where they've been, and they can remember those interactions. So a robot like Arthur has proven quite useful in medical applications, 2 medical applications that we've tested these kinds of robots in. The first is an autism therapy application, providing social training to children who have limited social capabilities and don't respond well to people, but provide this kind of social training that then brings them out of their shell so that they can learn how to interact and interpret the mental state of other people. So children with autism sometimes have a very hard time with this, and these applications are proving very useful. We also are testing him in a medical simulation technology, especially for the respirator test fit and medical training as well. So these are numerous applications for humanoid robots that have proven quite successful in the marketplace. Moving into the autism therapy applications, we see a lot of social good, a lot of good for the world. Alzheimer's and elder care applications, in experiments, we found that humanoid robots can reduce blood pressure, provide a sense of comfort and connection to the world, and can do useful things like information services, reminding a patient to take their medicine, alerting a medical practitioner when something is going wrong. So numerous education and special needs applications for robots exist. We've deployed some of our robots in muscular dystrophy and cerebral palsy testing. The use of robots to remotely control a medical simulation experience has been proving very useful and has the opportunity to provide jobs for people who otherwise can't hold jobs. They can't go in and work, but remotely controlling a robot can be done by anybody, from remote locations to people who are physically disabled and can't go into a work location. So you may often hear in the news media that robots are taking our jobs. But in this particular case, the interesting thing is that a remote control humanoid robot can give jobs to people who otherwise can't do this kind of work. The face makes a huge difference, and it really doesn't take a whole lot. So this is an example of one of the faces that I've built that only uses 3 motors, but can affect a full range of facial expressions. What this means is that you can mass manufacture these things at extremely low toy-like prices and still deliver the kind of interaction that you see in our example robots. And those interactions are crowd pleasers. People love them. People will crowd around when we publicly display the robots. They want to know what the robot's feeling, what the robot's experiencing. So being able to show the inside of the robot's intelligence system, so being able to see all the various states that the robot is going into is very interesting. But what's more interesting than the technology is that social capacity for the robot. So finally, the world is starting to wake up to this. So there have been numerous studies that show that realistic robots are very beneficial, and the Wall Street Journal recently basically said that the face is absolutely necessary for this. Some human subject tests, as shown in NBC News recently, showed that human faces, realistic faces on robots, are considered to be more trustworthy than less realistic robot faces. And one of my robots here, this is an Einstein robot that I made that's at the University of California at San Diego, was used in some psychology tests that showed that people spontaneously mimic the robot's faces, but they do not when they're looking at real human faces on a screen. So if you're interacting with a person on Skype, you emotionally, unconsciously respond less than you do when you're encountering a robot, even though the robot is, that it's phony, it's not a real person. What this means is the 3D physically embodied robot presence is a better display than a flat screen. Fundamentally different. It's a better interface for these kinds of human-to-human interactions. So we see these robots also not just as intelligent beings that we're developing, but also a possible telepresence device, a kind of avatar, if you will, where we track the human face and its expressions, and then we can play those facial expressions on the robot, and you can see what the robot sees, so it's just like you're there. So we call this robotic teleportation. It's like you're at this remote location through the robot. So the robot is you, effectively. So that allows you to potentially show up on another continent without having to buy an airplane ticket, waste the money, waste the jet fuel, destroy the environment by releasing all that jet fuel. In other words, it can be good for the environment and also allow us to connect with each other much more easily. So we see this as kind of, whew. So, yeah. And you can also save lives, because if the ceiling collapses on your robot, then you get to survive. So there's a long and highly esteemed history of humanoid robots, going back to the time of the Greeks and the Romans and previous, probably, with cellular with the kind of automata that they would show as humanoid robots. As computing technology has improved, we've seen more advanced humanoid robots come along in the last 50 years. But the problems with these robots are that they make very limited facial expressions, and they're extremely power hungry, and they're very, very expensive. That means that they can't be the kind of full bandwidth human interface that you would want. You know, you can't have like the T1 data rates that you get with the human face. There's like a limited modem kind of interaction. That's where Hanson robots make sense. So I developed a skin material, patented skin material, and published some material science papers on it that allows for much more natural human facial expressions at approximately 1/23 the power. So you're decreasing the forces, increasing the size of the facial expressions, allowing you to make the facial expressions with very tiny motors that fit inside the face. And that facilitates that very high data rate kind of communication. These robots we've manufactured one by one and put into applications in science museums, in the Centers for Disease Control in the United States. We've deployed them in art museums at the Reina Sofia Museum and at Tokyo Modern, several other museums, and also in university research labs like the University of Cambridge, University of Pisa, KAIST, dozens of these research robots. But what we were doing was also a lot of research and development in the process, making them in a kind of handmade operation. But to change the world, we've got to go past that. We've got to lower the costs and increase the productivity. So we recently moved to Hong Kong and began to forge relationships with factories and validate the low-cost manufacturing of the robots while also scaling up the manufacturing infrastructure. So now we're preparing to release these robots in great numbers to address these real applications around the world. And the background, research technology, has resulted in some awards, numerous patents, a lot of publications in many areas, from cognitive science to material science to artificial intelligence. And also a lot of press attention. So this one is a TV show in the United States where a reporter is sitting and having a conversation with a robot. If it's all right, I'm going to back this up and have you turn up the volume, please, so we can hear this video.
Do you think robots will take over the world?
Jeez, dude. You all got the big questions cooking today. But you're my friend, and I'll remember my friends, and I will be good to you. So don't worry. Even if I evolve into Terminator, I'll still be nice to you. I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo, where I can watch you for old time's sake.
I'm comforted. I'm very comforted now. I'm going to be part of his people's zoo.
Thank you. So what you see here is an unstructured conversation. A reporter or anybody sitting on the sofa with this particular robot would be able to say anything they want, and the robot will process it and then respond with an answer. Now, this particular robot is a portrait of a science fiction writer named Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick wrote a book called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep that was the basis of Blade Runner, the movie. And his stories often dealt with these robots that thought they were human. And he wrote quite a bit on this subject in his nonfiction, letters, journals. And so we have this enormous body of writing, and we put that into an artificial intelligent database that then allowed the robot to reason a little bit, but also statistically parse the thoughts of the writer. He died in 1982, the science fiction writer. So we brought him back to life. And now the robots can spontaneously spit out these kinds of interesting sentences assembled from his words. So in a way, he's like a technological ghost. We've brought him back from the dead, but it's a new kind of being. But this thing is not really smart, not human-level smart. But that's what we're trying towards, is human-level intelligence. So the question is, how can we get them to reflect us more deeply? Part of it is improving the hardware and the manufacturing, the software and the artificial intelligence, the art design, the product design, marketing, figuring out how it interacts with people informally or intuitively, but also quite formally by understanding the science of the mind of the user, and also creating a science of mind for engineering the robot intelligence. So we sort of think of this as an integrated biosystem of robot design. So in other words, you've got lots of parts, from cameras, microphones, computer vision, speech recognition, motion control, and the human-robot interface, and it all comes together. But there's one more element that's really important, and that is the intuitive aesthetic design of the robot. My background is not just engineering, but also artistry. So I've won engineering awards. I have my PhD in interactive arts and engineering. I have also a bachelor's in film animation video from an art school called Rhode Island School of Design. I also could draw very well and had a very natural ability to sculpt. So for 2 years after undergrad, I was a professional sculptor for theme parks. And I also used some of my robotics undergrad work to move into robotics development within that themed entertainment industry. This combination of disciplines is absolutely essential to make robots that are meaningful characters. It's not just engineering, it's not just neuroscience and cognitive science, it's also this intuitive aesthetic sensibility that's essential. Those were all my sculptures and paintings, by the way, just to make that clear. So these robots usually start as works of sculpture in clay. This is Einstein, as I sculpted him in clay. So what you see here on the left of the screen is a clay sculpture that I produced of Einstein. From there, I make a negative mold, reverse sculpt the skull to get anatomically accurate skin thicknesses. I then put anatomically derived tissue structures that get embedded into the skin. And then from there, with that anatomically accurate material science, this is what we call frubber. This is a nanotechnology that I developed in collaboration with a friend of mine at the Jet Propulsion Lab, some feedback and mentoring from him, that then results in extremely natural-looking facial expressions with a full range of facial expression motions. So you combine all of these elements with the mechanical engineering, the software design, and you then get these kind of very natural-looking expressions, interactions. And you know, the ability to see gestures, like Einstein can see the basic motions. The ability to generate gestures, like you see with the Ibn Sina robot at the United Arab Emirates University. The ability to mimic facial capture animation, like what you see with the Alice robot that we made for the University of Geneva Mirror Lab. The ability to do low-cost facial expression mimicry with this very small Einstein robot that we developed to be mass-produced and turn into a home companion robot. So in this system, you have the ability to perceive, the ability to make decisions, and the ability to control the robot hardware. So here you have a set of animation capabilities that simulate motives, urges, emotions. This is both from a cognitive perspective and an artistic authoring perspective. But beyond this kind of shallow intelligence that we've developed before, we want to make the machines brilliant. We want to make them human-level aware. We want to make them do the casual, brilliant things that people do, like being able to walk across the room and walk through a doorway and manipulate objects. Those are brilliant. Robots still have a pretty hard time with these things, honestly. We also want them to do the casual brilliance of social interaction, to understand what somebody's feeling. We want to go past all of this kind of creative imagination to match human-level creative imagination in general. So we're putting together these algorithms of creativity and imagination inspired by human creativity. The components of human creativity that result in the genius of Da Vinci, etc., are generated by multiple layers of intelligence. So we're taking this bio-inspired neural architecture approach, and we're working with some of the most advanced artificial intelligence architects. In particular, on our team, we've got a guy named Ben Goertzel, who's the founder of a field of AI called artificial general intelligence, that's matching human-level general intelligence. So we already do some pretty smart stuff with like these kinds of conversations. Perception of human facial expressions with the Machine Perception Laboratory tool set. The ability to learn visual things with hierarchical temporal learning. Tying these into cognitive semantic network. Tying these into the artificial general intelligence project of our head of AI, Ben Goertzel. His project's called OpenCog. So we're releasing a lot of our software open source along with OpenCog in this constellation of open source parts. And our proprietary software then rides on top of this, delivering the kind of character-specific intelligence. This allows explicit knowledge representation, imagination, procedural learning. This can work in game environments as well as the physical environment, making for smarter robots in general. It can also be used in this example. Let me see if I can get this video to play. Maybe person controlling the presentation will click the video for me, please. Turn the volume up too. It looks like we're not going to get that, but basically we've effectively used the Einstein with a physics tutor from the University of Memphis that gives natural language tutorials in physics. Also with the autism therapy at the University of Messina Medical School and University of Pisa, and also the Institute, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health at the Centers for Disease Control, using our robots for respirator test fit mannequins. So what this means is that there are real-world uses at this time that have been shown. But we also know that the world is hungry for new versions of these things. So this tool set and its flexibility then allows, we hope, to put faces on these faceless robots. We think that these robots will be far more relevant in the world. There's a projected $100 billion market for robots by 2018. And other market surveys show that this is actually a very conservative estimate. A large percentage of these could be humanoid robots and would be better if they are human-like robots, because there's a requirement for human-robot interactions with some of these applications. For example, retail, entertainment, medical training, and therapy applications. These are clearly robots where the human-like form will make a big difference. People are beginning to notice this, and many news articles profiling applications for robots are identifying successful real-world uses of these robots in these applications. So we see the robot companions being a huge market. This is profiled. So then there's the question, if robots and artificial intelligence are coming, we know that they are, and there's no way to stop it. At this point, many of the biggest tech companies are deeply invested in artificial intelligence and the pursuit of artificial general intelligence. Google, Amazon, and many other companies. Many governments around the world, including the United States government, are developing these kinds of military machines to autonomously navigate through military environments. Most of these robots and artificial intelligence projects do not have any real human-like interface. They're not designed to form relationships, not deep relationships with people. My thesis is that if they do become human-level intelligent, and there's some reason to believe that maybe within 1 to 2, maybe 3 decades, they will be as smart as people. That it's possible. It's not certain, we don't know when, we don't know if, but it is possible. Arguably, it seems to be coming. Maybe it's a reasonable guess to think that within 15 years they may be as smart as we are. If they do become as smart as human, they probably will be very smarter than humans very quickly, because they won't stop. They'll continue to improve themselves, right? At that point, they would be capable of reinventing themselves, reprogramming themselves. The question is, what does that mean for humans? What does that mean for civilization? Are we safe with these kinds of super intelligent machines? In other words, will they be friendly towards us? I believe that if we raise them among us with a human-like form, if we care for them, if we imbue them with the capacity to care for us, in other words, if we give them this kind of face, we give them this form that inspires us to care and bring them into our lives, then as they get smarter, they will converge on our values. They will converge on compassion. They will come to value us and care about us. In other words, character robots enables more intelligent robots and robots who care, robots who are fundamentally friendly and safe. We do know that these kinds of accelerating computing trends are contributing towards this kind of progress, and they are not slowing down. We have not yet reached the ends of Moore's law. $1,000 of computing continues to double at a fairly consistent rate. But those aren't the only accelerating trends. So if we do give rise to these kinds of super intelligent machines, it's actually now given a name. You know, these kinds of spiraling, self-accelerating super intelligent machines are often referred to as a technological singularity. And it's a controversial topic. There's no way to know for sure if it's going to happen. And a lot of people who think that maybe it could happen, like Hawkins and Elon Musk and a lot of these big name people are starting to think, well, maybe they won't be safe. Maybe they'll be dangerous. Most likely, in some of these arguments and chains of reasoning, you can see that most likely they would not be friendly. They would not inherently care about the things we care about. And in that case, we're an inconvenience, and they would not be safe for us. But, we can consider all of these things that could go wrong: jobs lost, strange effects on society and people, it's kind of doom, gray goo, mad paperclip scenarios, Terminator, who's familiar with the movie Terminator, where robots, try to kill us all. What about collapse scenarios, where we just don't know the effects, the unintended consequences cause, economic collapse or perhaps geopolitical instability, or the machines kind of just go out of control. They try to maximize the next quarter's profit, but they realize that, they could maximize next quarter's profit by taking advantage of some opportunity that causes a global thermonuclear war 2 quarters down the road. But that corporation doesn't realize that. They get, $1 trillion of profit in this next quarter, and then by the end of the year, the world is a dead place. So we have to consider these things: the laws of unintended consequences, the complications, the existential ethics of this kind of thing. So as we develop these machines, we have to consider computational compassion and ethical AI. So we have to give them imagination and creativity in order to get them to understand the consequences of their actions. If we don't give them the ability to care by understanding those consequences, then how can they look out for the best? How can they look out for the greater good? So we need to teach the AI to care, to understand, to imagine and realize a path to the greatest amount of freedom, creativity, preservation of the maximum amount of life, of human life, of animal life, of information, libraries, knowledge, to facilitate the greatest amount of happiness for people and the greatest profitability for companies and civilization, so that we have the greatest amount of benefit over the longest period of time, not just 1 quarter, but not just 50 years, but potentially many, many years. Only then will human-level intelligent or greater than human-level intelligent machines be safe. So how do we achieve that? Well, there's a few ways. One, we need to focus on these issues of compassionate artificial intelligence. We need to create machines that facilitate this kind of cyclical, interactive, iterative development, where we test the machine and we say, you know what, it doesn't quite capture my heart enough. I want it to seem to care more, right? And the companies that produce the robots that care more are going to win out. They're going to sell more robots. So this kind of feedback between the consumer, the developer, and the entrepreneur, that's going to drive machines towards more compassionate and caring states of being, deeper social awareness, deeper understanding of who we are. We also have founded, in addition to the company Hanson Robotics, I also founded a nonprofit called the Initiative for Awakening Machines, or IAM for short. This is a program for achieving human-level intelligent machines with compassion, with research dedicated to ethical machine learning, machine ethics, being able to do ethical estimations, and an open framework to facilitate research with other groups. So through this, we're looking at facilitating additional research, products, nurturing this kind of extended robotics ecosystem through networking and collaboration, and working towards these kinds of positive outcomes. And only through this kind of dialogue and connection can we hope to move intelligent machines towards this kind of productive result for the world. And so I'd like to thank you for hosting this remarkable event, and I hope that you will participate to make the world a better place through super intelligent machines. Thank you.